Coming up on Business Incorporated. Food prices lift Morocco's consumer price index to 8.2% year-on-year in March. The National Bureau of Statistics sets date to release new unemployment and employment figures in Nigeria. Oil market, Brent and WTI on track for a weekly drop of about 6%. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Ladi Williams. First off, let's kick off with the markets. As major markets on the African continent that we track are closed for the holidays. We see the NGX did close positive yesterday. That was up 0.29%, snapping those losses we saw in the week. South Africa's GSE index, that's open. That's trading today. It's down 0.95%, almost 1%. Other markets we track, we see the EGX 30, that closed down 0.13%. And we see Kenya closed down 0.75%. That was yesterday. Now let's bring it down here to Nigeria. We see the local bourse is closed today for the holidays. But let's get a sense of what drove sentiment in the holiday shortened week. Joining me now is Omiete Nko-Taria, Chief Consultant, Trinity Transnational Consulting. Great to have you on the show.
Good afternoon, viewers.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. So it's another subdued week. What do you think drove sentiment on the NGX this week?
Okay, straight away, what happened? Two key things happened in the course of the week. Access Bank declared a fantastic result by way of 1 Naira 30 Kobo dividend declaration. And that drove a lot of interest. And then there was also the takeover or investment in Transcorp by Femi Otedola, who invested about 5.52% stake in Transcorp. And so those generated some positive sentiment for those two stocks in the course of the week. Or along the line, because you also have the earnings season upon us right now, where dividends are declared and so on. So many companies already declared dividends and therefore marked down their share prices. And for that reason, in spite of all of the positive sentiments following some of these stocks that are performing very well regarding their full year results as announced, brought a situation where the all share index had to drop week on week by 1.04%.
So very quickly now, before I let you go, what are you expecting for next week on the NGX?
Now, going forward, since we are still neck deep into our earnings week, we expect that more companies will declare results, pay out dividends, mark down their share prices. But all in all, the sentiment in the market will remain upbeat. For companies we expect to give very good results. The banking sector has seen very great performances in spite of the economic headwinds in 2022. We expect that more results will be churned out and maybe more surprises like we have had with Access Corporation.
All right, thank you so much. That was Omiete Nko-Taria, Chief Consultant, Trinity Transnational Consulting. Thank you for your perspective today.
Thank you very much, Ladi. Cheers.
All right, so let's see what's happening in the Middle East now. We see most markets there definitely closed for the Muslim holidays, but they closed negative in the UAE. That was yesterday, 0.04% down for the Abu Dhabi index. Dubai index, that's down 1.16% close yesterday. Just Saudi Arabia index closing the green, up 1.19%. Let's head on to Europe now. We see Germany seeing another round of transport strikes today. For more now, let's have Cassandra Sant right there in Berlin. So Cassandra, there's a few strikes ongoing today. Detangle this web for us. Who's on strike exactly?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so aviation security workers are striking at 4 airports across Germany today. The strike started on Thursday with actions at Dusseldorf, Hamburg, and Cologne-Bonn airports. It's so far meant 700 departing flights were canceled. And Verdi, the union representing these workers, has also called on security staff to walk off the job in Stuttgart today. Meanwhile, rail workers were on strike this morning only until 11 a.m. local time, but there are now expected to be impacts throughout the entire day. But that strike was organized by the union EVG on Deutsche Bahn trains. That's the state-owned train operator, which said all long-distance trains were going to be canceled until 1 p.m. But Deutsche Bahn also runs a series of commuter and metro trains across the country known as the S-Bahn. Many people might not realize their local train to work is run by the National Train Service until they arrive at their platform to find that train's not coming anytime soon. Now, a bit of an anecdote, but even those in the news industry are sometimes caught off guard by these kinds of labor actions, as several Deutsche Welle employees were already stuck up in that commuting whirlwind this morning.
And what are the labor union demands, and are employees putting a counter demand on the table?
The demands from the airport and rail workers unions all have to do with the high cost of living at the moment. Inflation in Germany has been well above the Eurozone target for months, so that's meant that prices have been steadily increasing here, especially when it comes to energy, which also has a knock-on effect to many other basic consumer goods and products. So in both sets of strikes, it comes down to money, as a lot of labor disputes do. For the airport security workers, they want bonuses for working at night, on weekends, and during public holidays. They also want a better collective agreement on overtime pay for security and service staff at commercial airports. There was a written counteroffer by their employer, the Federal Association of Aviation Securities Companies, but the union called it insufficient. Negotiations are set to continue next Thursday and Friday. Now, for the rail workers, EVG represents 230,000 workers, and they're calling for a 12% wage increase, which would translate to at least an additional 650 euros per month. Employers have meanwhile put a counteroffer of 5%, a 5% wage increase with a one-off payment of up to 2,500 euros on the table. Those two sides are set to return to the negotiating table next week as well.
Well, I guess it's all about the money now. So last trading day of the week, how are markets looking on the opening?
The top European stock markets drifted lower on Friday. The London FTSE 100 index dipped compared to the closing level on Thursday. And looking towards the Eurozone, the CAC 40 index also dipped by about 0.3%. The Frankfurt DAX this morning shed half a point. Stepping back and looking at some of these sectors in particular, industrial miners slid 2.4%. They're tracking a weakness in copper prices amid a weak demand outlook. Mining company Glencore has reported lower copper, zinc, and nickel production in the first quarter. Meanwhile, the food, beverage, and tobacco and pharmaceutical sectors all ticked up slightly, adding 0.3%.
All right. Thank you so much. That was Cassandra Sunt right there in Berlin. Thank you. All right, let's head on to London now. Right now in the UK, it's still about Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab's resignation. Joining me now is Juliana. Great to have you, Juliana. So you spoke to me in the morning about this. What's the update now?
Good afternoon, Laddie. I think it's worth stating just how much of a significant breaking news story this is in the UK at the moment, because Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is indeed in trouble. He has lost his closest ally, his loyal lieutenant, who was once Dominic Robb, the second most senior office holder in Westminster. He, of course, handed in his resignation to government this morning in a scathing letter following yesterday's release of a report by a senior KC lawyer in the UK, Adam Tolley, who has been investigating Dominic Raab for 5 months over pretty serious allegations of bullying in office. He has denied those allegations, though in the resignation letter he released this morning, he did concede that perhaps there were two pieces of information that could be interpreted as being bullying. There are so many layers to this, but I think it's worth going back a little bit. Dominic Robb is pretty familiar to most people here in the UK. I think he really shot to fame when at one point we thought we may have lost our former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who in 2020 was admitted to Thomas and St Guy's Hospital, suffering very serious COVID complications. Dominic Robb was appointed the Deputy Prime Minister. We hadn't had that role in this country for a couple of years, as well as being the Foreign Secretary. Then there was scandal during the time when US and British troops left Afghanistan. He was the Foreign Secretary at that time. When everyone was in a crisis, he was caught sunbathing on holiday. He was subsequently demoted by Boris Johnson. But during the leadership campaign, where Liz Truss was battling against Rishi Sunak, Dominic Robb stood shoulder to shoulder with Rishi Sunak. Even when it got to the point where we knew that Liz Truss had it in the bag, he left everybody's opinions of Rishi Sunak and backed him, which is why we're not surprised that in the letter of acceptance, Rishi Sunak has said he is accepting this resignation with great sadness, despite the fact that Dominic Robb did not pay tribute to Rishi Sunak absolutely at all within his letter. Rishi Sunak did say that there are questions that need to be had of the civil service because, of course, a lot of people are trying to interpretate what is bullying, particularly as we know the labour market in the UK is particularly tight at the moment. Lots of people commentating that there are some individuals in the UK who are a little bit work shy. If indeed your boss asks you to do a little bit of work and they don't say it in a comfortable manner, is that bullying? And that is a question for the civil service today, and that is exactly what has been alluded to in Dominic Robb's resignation letter. But why is this going to be a huge headache for the Prime Minister? He's only 6 months into the job, 6 months in, and he has already lost 3 senior cabinet ministers. It started back just at the end of last year, where the former Education Secretary, Sir Gavin Williamson, was forced to resign over pretty significant harassment WhatsApp messages that were leaked to the press. Then, of course, we had Nazim Zahawi, who was Chancellor at one point, did exceptionally well when he was Vaccines Minister. He was forced to resign over issues he had with HMRC and tax. And now we've had this resignation this morning from Dominic Robb. Of course, you can imagine there has been reactions all over Westminster Palace. We've had the Labour Party leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying, you know, Dominic Robb isn't just one bad apple, that this is the state of the Conservative government. The Liberal Democrats are asking for a by-election. They don't think Dominic Robb should just retire from government, that he should actually resign from being a minister in Esher, which is a very, very hotly contested seat that the Liberal Democrats could take back. Now, going back to when Rishi Sunak started his tenure, his first address outside number 10 Downing Street, which was televised across the world, did say that he is going to usher in a new administration that is going to give away to bad politics, misogyny, harassment, bullying allegations, because, of course, Priti Patel, the former Home Secretary, was also charged with bullying allegations. And he said that this was going to be a brand new administration. Unfortunately for him, it's not like that. And because it doesn't appear as if Dominic Raab is going lightly, he's attacked the civil service. I think this is going to be an issue that is going to creep up. But we also know that the Conservative Party are doing pretty abysmally in the polls, according to any poll you look at in the UK at the moment. If there was an election tomorrow, the Labour Party would sweep it. And that's exactly a position that Rishi Sunak doesn't want to be in. He is already fighting off different tranches of the party, some who oppose the illegal immigration bill, some who are opposing the Windsor framework led by his predecessor, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. And now there are some individuals within the party that are absolutely sick to their stomach that a stalwart in the party, Dominic Robb, who stood behind the Prime Minister in his darkest days, has been forced to resign because of these bullying allegations. So it is a pretty serious story that is developing. We are possibly expecting a reshuffle at any point as well, Laddie.
Definitely the biggest story right now in the UK. And thank you so much, Juliana, for breaking it down for us. Thank you so much. Enjoy the weekend. Very dramatic one at that. Thank you. Welcome back. Well, the year 2022 was marked by the worst power outages in South Africa's history, and electricity generation deficits reached up to 6 gigawatts on occasion, necessitating up to 10 hours of rolling electricity blackouts. Let's get an update now from our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, joining us via Zoom. Great to have you.
A very good afternoon to you, Laddie, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So, as winter approaches now, what is the expectation for power outages in South Africa?
Well, indeed, Laddie, it goes without saying that the power outages have been devastating, to the economy. We understand now that the Energy Crisis Committee is currently meeting to see whether or not they can come up with a solution to these challenges. And there was an urgent cabinet meeting yesterday with the Minister of Energy, Hosien Tsoramokgopa, who addressed top brass of the African National Congress, this is the ruling party, to try to, tell them the way forward as to what do we do then, because we understand now, Laddie, that we are in stage 6 of load shedding. This could mean that one would be without power for 3 or 4 hours, depending on where you stay. But there's also that challenge also between the Minister of Electricity, the Minister of Enterprises, and the Minister of Mineral Resources. So there's that hurdle where, we don't really understand who has more power in terms of making the decisions. So as it stands, South Africa has about 24,000 megawatts. This is the available energy in the country. So when we crunch the numbers, Laddie, we come to realize that 8,000 jobs are on the line as a result of this load shedding. Now, going back to your question, the Minister of Electricity in South Africa has mentioned that, in fact, they have acquired a technology that would switch off people's geysers without their consent. This could very well be that, South Africans must, brace themselves for some cold showers. But having said that, Laddie, he says that they're going to save about 2,500 to 4,000 megawatts if they do that. But also we understand that there is that 22 billion rands from Treasury that is set aside from Treasury to actually help Eskom purchase diesel. But I can tell you now, Laddie, that many commentators are pointing a bleak picture moving into winter.
Yeah, definitely a bleak picture there. But thank you so much for the update. We hope things get better right there in South Africa. That was Innocent Samosa, our correspondent right there in South Africa. Thank you. All right, now, so right here in Nigeria, we see that the National Bureau of Statistics will release the new unemployment and employment figures for the country by May 2023. In a document titled Nigeria Labor Force Framework Redesign 2023, the NBS explained that the report, which is almost concluded, will cover data collected from October 19th, 2022 to January 22nd this year and will be published before the end of next month. The agency mentioned that the country's unemployment rate stood at 33.3% as of the fourth quarter of 2020. The NBS noted that despite the challenges faced in gathering data for the report, it was learning from other countries to improve Nigeria's labor market statistics. And Morocco's consumer price index in March rose by 8.2% from a year earlier on a surge in food prices. According to the statistics agency HCP, food prices rose by 16.1% from a year earlier, while non-food inflation, that increased by 3% on a month-to-month basis. The index rose by 0.1%, while higher food prices triggered government restrictions on the export of some vegetables to European and African markets to reduce prices at home. And now let's head on to Ghana now. We see a restructuring. They're still restructuring most of their debt at this time, estimated at 576 billion cedis. But how are banks right now in Africa and abroad with exposure affected? Joining me now is Courage Boti, as economist at GCB Capital Limited, joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. All right, no, Boti. All right, I'll get back to Boti later on. Let's check on the oil market now. We see oil prices eased, extending losses from the 2 days and heading for a weekly decline. Softening U.S. economic data and rising U.S. gasoline. And softening U.S. economic data there raised concerns about a recession and slower global oil demand. Brent for June delivery, that was down 14 cents to 0.2% at $80.96 a barrel. While the U.S. WTI crude for June delivery, that slid 12 cents. It was down about 0.2% to $77.25 a barrel. Both benchmarks slid by more than 2% to their lowest level since late March and Thursday amid fears of a possible recession, and we're on track for a weekly drop of about 6%. And to the metals market now, we'll see gold prices drifted lower today as the dollar steadied. The soft U.S. economic data reinforced expectations that the Federal Reserve would pause its tightening cycle after delivering more rate hikes next month. We see spot gold, that was down 0.1% at $2,001.75 per ounce. After rising 1% on Thursday, we see U.S. gold futures fell about 0.3% to $2,013.70 per ounce. We'll be watching out for how the metals market play out next week. Still have a lot of data coming out from the U.S. to show us directions for policy directions in the U.S., and definitely that impacts the oil market and metals market. All right, that's the show today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Enjoy the weekend.